everybody, and welcome to this webinar brought to you today by SINC USA in partnership with Rimini Street. My name is Jason Senamore, Chief Product Officer here at SINC, and I am delighted to have you attending and watching this session. The focus of the discussion centers on innovation or cost savings and how SAP customers can actually have both. Many companies find their budgets already stretched to the limit. So how do you continue to innovate in the face of cost constraints presented by the pandemic? CIOs and IT leaders are under unrelenting pressure to balance the high cost of maintaining their SAP systems and funding innovation to achieve competitive edge. I am joined today by two fantastic thought leaders on this topic who will share how SAP customers like T-Mobile, for example, are accelerating innovation by taking control of their own SAP roadmap strategy. So introducing our speakers, and if they can please do me the pleasure of joining me on the virtual stage. First, we have Mr. Hari Candadai, the GVP and Global Thought Leadership and Research Individual at Rimini Street, and Jennifer Perry, also GVP and GM for SAP Services at Rimini Street. Hello there, Hari and Jennifer.
Hi,
lovely to have you both here. Thank you so much for joining and sharing your insights with the audience today. Now, audience, we want to ensure you have the opportunity to have any questions you may have answered accordingly by our esteemed panelists. So please use the Q&A feature to submit your questions to Jennifer and Hari, should you have any. You also have the chat feature here to obviously collaborate with one another, comment on things being said, so please utilize that to its full extent. It's enough from me. So without further delay, I'd like to hand things over to our two speakers, Jennifer and Hari. Over to you.
Thank you, Jason. Can you see my screen, Jason?
Not yet, but if you can go ahead and share your screen, that'd be fantastic.
Let me share my screen. How about now?
There we go. Yep, and if you want to just go into presentation mode.
You can still see that?
Perfect. Over to you.
Super. Well, thank you, Jason, so much for that introduction, and appreciate you hosting and the SINC team hosting the webinar today. Hello, audience. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules, joining us for this discussion. As Jason said, the topic is about innovation and cost savings. It doesn't have to be either or. How can SAP customers, as we say, have their cake and eat it too? So very excited about the topic. As Jason mentioned, my name is Hari. I run the thought leadership and research practice here at Rimini Street. If you're not familiar with Rimini Street, we are a third-party support provider as well as an AMS provider for SAP, Oracle, as well as Salesforce environments. So we'll share a little more about who we are, what we do later in the presentation. But first things first, very excited about the topic, and also excited that Jennifer is here as our SAP services leader to share her thoughts on how SAP customers are doing both. Okay. All right, with that, quickly, the standard disclaimer, we need to get this out of the way. You can read it, it's in its entirety when we send a copy of this presentation, but the bottom line is that all the material that's presented, the content that's presented is subject to the intellectual property rights of Rimini Street, okay? All right, so with that, it is my pleasure to have Jennifer here join us. Jennifer, as Jason mentioned, is the Group Vice President and General Manager for SAP Services at Rimini Street. Maybe Jennifer, just a quick introduction, your background, your SAP experience, so the audience knows your experience, and then we'll dive into the discussion.
Absolutely, thank you, Hari. So I've been at Rimini Street just over 7 years, but I've actually spent the last 23 years in the SAP industry. So as a certified logistics consultant many years ago, and then working my way up into more leadership roles, and then running global centers of excellence for different companies. And then just prior to joining Rimini Street, I actually worked for a Rimini Street client. So understand the evaluation and looking at third-party support in order to support systems that you have today. So great to be on a virtual meeting this morning with everyone, and look forward to any of the questions that you have today.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer, for joining us. All right, without further ado, here's the ground we're going to cover today. It is going to be packed, and we're going to try and keep this as tight as possible, crisply moving through. The first segment is about hearing from SAP customers. This is a summary of a recent IDG survey that was conducted, supported by Rimini Street. This is a global survey of about 250 SAP professionals. These are folks who are managing SAP environments actively. They're involved in SAP technology decisions. They're involved in SAP strategy as well, and they run the gamut from SAP managers to SAP architects to leads, and even higher level IT management executives and the CIOs included. So great findings that we will have a conversation with Jennifer about. The next topic is about, let's make sure we spend a few minutes on S4HANA, SAP S4HANA. No SAP conversation is complete without touching about S4HANA. So we're going to share with you some of our perspectives, as well as some interesting Gartner findings on or recent statistics on S4HANA. So there's a lot of information. We're trying to condense it and see if it can be of value to you. Then we'll talk about how are SAP customers doing both, which is the heart of the conversation, right? How are SAP customers and Rimini Street clients innovating as well as optimizing their costs, and you got to do both. And then we'll talk a little bit about the third-party support model. We'll take a look at what analysts like Gartner is saying about the model, and if the model is right for you, so you have some information. And then we'll wrap up with a little bit of Rimini Street overview on how does the model actually work, in case you're not familiar with it. We'll make sure we have a few minutes for Q&A. We do have a couple of questions, a few questions actually that have come in. So thank you for those who have submitted. But if you still get a chance, if you want your questions answered, we'll try to go through as many as possible. We keep hearing in such webinars that the Q&A part is very valuable. So keep those questions coming. Jason and I and Jennifer will go through as many as possible. I want to quickly set the stage before we get into the survey itself. The IT mission, I'm sure many of you on the call here today, you realize that your mission is changing fast. There's a lot of focus on supporting growth and competitive advantage for most companies, depending on the industry, right? Some of them, of course, unfortunately, still in the survival mode. But those of you that are moving towards stabilized mode, or maybe even in the thrive mode, like the Zooms of the world, the mission is evolving. And this Gartner report that just came out last week, May 11th, this is the annual CEO survey of over 465 CEOs and other senior business executives across North America, Europe, EMEA, Asia Pacific, and different industries, different revenue sizes. The number one priority for CEOs today is growth. They want to focus on growth. They see the opportunity on the other side of the crisis. It was loud and clear in this report. Now, the immediate second priority that they focused on was technology, going digital and investing in the right technology investments and priorities. So what does that say? That says that CIOs have a mandate to innovate. The great news is CIOs are being seen as, or IT professionals, IT leaders are being seen as the enablers of growth, and they have a mandate to innovate. And there could not have been a better time from everything we hear from other CIOs to be a CIO or a leader within IT. So great opportunity there. But here's the problem, right? On the right-hand side, you see a classic situation, the current budget problem. 90%, according to this Gartner study, goes towards keeping the lights on. 90% of a typical budget goes towards keeping the lights on, leaving 10% to do all the things that your CEO and the board wants you to do. So how is that possible? Something must change, and that's the bottom line. And we'll talk about a few ways to do that. So with that backdrop, let's see what SAP customers are sharing as their priorities. And this goes to the IDG survey that I talk about. So Jennifer, maybe what we should do is just these are the findings. I just put all the findings here, but maybe we go through them one by one. It'll be good to hear your perspectives. You speak with a lot of SAP customers and prospective customers for Rimini Street, but you have a good set of discussion points and insights. Let's start with the first one. 95%, according to this survey of over 250 professionals, SAP professionals, say that their current systems, their current SAP systems are their needs are being fully met or mostly met, 95%. Anything surprising there, given what you hear from SAP customers in your experience?
No, great. No surprises, actually, Hari. If you think about it, companies have spent so much time and money investing in their SAP systems. They can customize them to meet their business needs. They've even integrated them to some best of breed systems as well for innovation. So when you invest that much, you've essentially tailored the system to meet your business needs. So, I can see why 95% of respondents see no reason to change.
Yeah, and it's also, in a way, Jennifer, we keep hearing it's testimony to good software, right? The software just works. And if the software just works, there's no business case to move to another new platform, which I think is the next point. I see number one and number two very closely linked. If the system works, why would I rip and replace to go to a new system? But rather, I want to maximize what I have in place. And according to this study, 96% say that they want to maximize their existing SAP investment. And by that, I'm thinking that's the entire business suite and other applications, but whatever SAP estate you have in place today, respondents say, according to the survey, they want to continue to maximize, right?
Yeah, and speaking to customers, some of them have not actually taken full advantage of the functionality that they already have. So although, yes, great systems, they've only used portions of it. So investing time in their existing ERP or those solutions that deliver high impact to the business are really critical factors. As we know, the pandemic drove the shift in thinking from a business perspective. So, reinvesting in a brand new ERP, as we know, isn't top of mind, but really those short-term, high impact type innovative projects for the business.
And this goes back to the survey finding on the Gartner finding on the budget situation, right? 90% is going towards keeping the lights on and maintaining current systems. Where's the money to go and invest in the new platform when your business, as you said, the business wants you to focus on a business roadmap versus replacing or refreshing backend systems. So those two findings were loud and clear. I want to keep my systems, the systems that are stable core systems running in place, and I want to maximize the life and value of it. Let's go to the third finding, Jennifer. 3 points. When SAP customers are looking at their SAP roadmap, they want to make sure they consider the risk involved in when they're evaluating their next generation roadmap. They want to make sure that their innovation needs are met. And interesting, last one, avoiding an SAP lock-in. Let's take it very quickly, one by one. Risk reduction, what does that mean to you? Is that a big bang? When you think of a big bang migration, is that what you think the sentiment is?
Yeah, because if you think about it, why take on high risk ERP implementations or migrations, when you can really focus on those areas that bring business value? So, as we previously talked about, innovation is key for companies to thrive, not large ERP implementations. And, we'll talk a little bit further about RISE with SAP, but that's another lock-in strategy as well, and something that, customers really need more information around because of the fact that it puts them to one contract. But, to your point, the avoidance or the range of risk reduction, big ERP implementations are very risky.
Yeah, as one public sector CIO, I recall a conversation a few weeks ago. He said, I don't need any more risk. The last year and a half, I've had enough risk to my business. I can't take on any more risk of trying to migrate to big platforms. That's not what the business wants me to do, or my my constituents want me to do. So that's from a risk reduction, innovation, and we will talk about RISE and your perspectives on that one. Finding number 4, Jennifer, the pandemic. accelerated innovation according to these respondents? There are many studies that support that. And is that consistent with what you're hearing from your conversations as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we've heard is, we've, and I've also experienced, is that customers are focusing on those short-term, high-impact type projects.
Mm-hmm.
Businesses need to focus on the bottom line. And I believe this will even continue post the pandemic as businesses start to recover. We kind of go back to the, if you implement something that is of high impact and also helps the bottom line of a company, why wouldn't you take that on versus something that could be of large risk to any type of company?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And the reality is, I think many business models have changed as well, right? I think, of course, the work from home models, but not only that, the interaction with customers, the interaction with your partners, your suppliers, new ways of working internally for your employees, but also, in my opinion, it's a new ways of serving your stakeholders. All of that, I think, has also contributed to the increase in this innovation during last year and a half or 2 years. As again, another CIO conversation I recall, a big metropolitan water district in the Midwest, when the CIO said that what would have normally taken them about 3 years or so, he had to get it done in 6 months, and those were the needs that they had to fulfill. But there's no question that the pandemic has increased and has increased innovation, and that is shown in the survey as well. 85% are using or considering third-party support as a strategy to optimize their current SAP investments. Jennifer, you've been a Rimini Street client. You've evaluated third-party support before, and back then it may not have been that prevalent. But any news here? Anything surprising as in why it's becoming a proven option, or your thoughts?
I think customers are really considering the strategy to free up funds to invest in innovation. So we've talked about innovation and how important that is. But outside of the savings, their support experience is far more expansive. And in speaking to our existing clients, they were looking for a partner who will work alongside them, of course, support their ERP, but also support them on their roadmap journey. Because, even though people may believe that clients come to us because their systems are going to stay the same, absolutely not. Our clients are continuing to innovate, and they find this is a way to be able to fund that.
Thank you, Jennifer. And we'll take a look at what experts like Gartner are also saying when it comes to third-party support and why it has become a proven option, a mainstream option now. So those are the survey findings from the IDG survey. I will point you to a link towards the end of this session so you can download the report and go through some great detail and some very good inputs from the respondents you might be interested in. So take a look at that. All right, let's shift gears, Jennifer. Let's talk about S/4HANA priorities, because this is top of mind for many SAP customers. The number one challenge, according to Gartner, is still that there is no business case for many, if not most, SAP customers to migrate to S/4HANA. There are three numbers here, according to this new Gartner report or presentation. 74% of existing SAP customers are still waiting to make that decision. It's been 6 years since the announcement of S/4HANA. What are they waiting for, Jennifer? Is it the business case? What does SAP still need to do?
If I take a look at it, some of it is a wait and see. Some people aren't those that will jump out and immediately, buy the first version or implement the first version. So I think it's a little bit of a wait and see. Some of it may be around the maturity of the product. In the business suite, there are a lot of industry solutions. Not all of them are available. But I do believe the biggest reason is really that return on investment. What's the business case for me to go to a new ERP when the one I already have works great? And we also saw a lot of projects get canceled with the pandemic. It really forced customers to revisit all projects and look for cost savings for their business. So I think there's a lot around the business case. And to your point, the ROI as well, Hari. It's just not there yet.
Yeah, and you made this point earlier, right? If you've invested millions of dollars, you've customized recall another CIO. It fits me like a glove. Why would I want to rip and replace it to something new and start all over again? I spend a lot of money and time to bring the system to where we want it to be, and it, as we saw in the previous survey, it works great. So this dilemma of what should I do? So let's move to the next point, because I think they're all interconnected. That shows, I think, reflects in this adoption, 14% according to this Gartner presentation, live on or at least one component of S/4HANA. What kind of trends are you seeing in terms of the adoption? Are you seeing it grow, Jennifer, or are there specific cases or profiles of companies or industries? Who are the adopters, and how, in your opinion, is that picking up?
Yeah, and it's interesting. I don't think I see one industry. It may be around business, but again, we're not, the ROI is not there. But if you think of the 14% that did go live, 95% are in a private edition. So essentially the on-premise version. Anyone going to the cloud version is typically a small to mid-sized business that do not require the flexibility to customize the product. So, just like, if you went live with Salesforce, which is in the cloud, the customizability of it is a little bit different. And so if you have an on-premise version of S/4HANA, you have a little bit more flexibility. And I also think a lot of the larger customers would prefer not to be in the cloud, just for different reasons. It could be a business reason, it could be compliance, any one of those. But, most of and a lot of the ones that have gone are net new customers to SAP as well.
Okay. 2027, we know as of February last year, when SAP moved that the date for end of mainstream support for Business Suite 7 from 2025 to 2027. Now, how is that playing in to the decisions you think? It's interesting, the quote on the right-hand side, Jennifer, where it's Gartner, according to Gartner, support deadlines becoming less and less urgent. I think this goes back to the point about SAP customers thinking about, how's this going to impact my business? But the fact is that they are going to lose mainstream support. They still can get to 2030, but you have to pay more to get that support. What is your thought on the deadline, and what sentiments are you hearing from customers in terms of, am I being forced to move now? Is now the time to move, or do I have other options?
Yeah, I like to call it date fatigue. And this, if you think about it, true, Gartner, the deadline is less urgent, because businesses really want to invest in those short-term, high-impact projects that will move the needle for their business. If you think about it, in some instances, SAP is trying to force customers to S/4HANA. We saw their third quarter earnings last year. It wasn't favorable for them, but the challenge is the business case is just not there. Right. Replacing your ERP, you have to think about it, it's not transformational. It's not moving the needle for your business. It's just replacing the back end that's really working as designed today or as you've customized it.
And these three numbers, the fact that customers are waiting and there's not as much adoption as SAP would like to see at this point, the fact that the 2027 deadline is a line drawn at this point. Let's talk about the RISE program and how that fits in. Is this program a way to get more SAP customers onto S/4HANA? Is this a white glove, fast path service to S/4HANA? What's your take on RISE, Jennifer? And then I refer to this quote from Valwar at the bottom, where they say that since there's no data on RISE yet, you should take a hard look first. So how do you recommend, what is RISE in your mind, and how should SAP customers proceed looking at RISE?
Right. So if you think about RISE, it is actually a collection of existing SAP solutions and services that they already had in place. So they're trying to bundle managed services, business process intelligence, which is powered by Signavio, which is an acquisition that they made most recently. They're trying to provide, tools and services to help customers migrate to S/4HANA. They also want to be, I like to say, all things to the enterprise, because if you think about it from an infrastructure perspective, they want to make sure that when you do migrate, that you're in either HEC or in one of their cloud offerings. So, we do see it as a bit of a lock-in strategy because it is under one contract. And to your point, Hari, there isn't a lot of data out there. A lot of the ASUG, DSAG, and a lot of those user groups are even cautioning customers to really take a look at what SAP is actually offering, because they want to make sure that all customers go in with eyes wide open and fully understand what it is. But, at this point, we see it as, SAP, one, trying to migrate you to S/4HANA, but two, trying to get into that more subscription model, even for on-premise licenses, and also a single contract.
And of course, when you move to a subscription model, according to different studies, SAP report included, you will be paying more than what you're paying on premise today after a certain point in time, right?
Yeah, they've even were quoted as saying they could, customers could be paying double, if not more,
on the subscription model.
Yes,
Yeah. So the lock-in part, Jennifer, thank you for clarifying. The lock-in part goes back to this one of the survey findings, saying they're cautious about being locked in. And one of the comments I recall was being locked into SAP was, in a way, for many customers, they want to keep it flexible. Being locked out of innovation, you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, so to speak. When the demands are so much from your business, goes back full circle to the first point we started about, when the board and the CEO wants to grow, and you need to be adopting all these new, faster, cheaper, more nimble, and new digital technologies. Being locked into one vendor, SAP or anybody else, I think limits and restricts your options. So thank you for sharing that. Let's move to the next segment. So this is a view from Gartner and other analysts on S/4HANA. Now let's talk about SAP customers. Let's take the example of T-Mobile, a large SAP customer as well as a Rimini Street client. And Jennifer, you were at T-Mobile as well back in the day. So help us understand how they continue to do so well and advance innovation and go doing the things that they're doing.
Yeah, a great company located in the Northwest. So they were founded in 1994. They're also known as the Uncarrier. You probably see those on commercials, which, it really approaches the customer experience by breaking the rules within the industry. So the philosophy saw the company eliminating everything that has no consequence to the customer. So, one of their core values was really around the customer experience. And that's the reason that they're there, is because of the customer. So how they did that was really taking a look at contracts as well as international roaming fees. T-Mobile's brand is a combination of their 5G network, which you've probably seen all over the news and all over commercials, and the products and the services that they deliver through their stores and the care channel. They've, as most recently, absorbed Sprint, so they have over 100 million subscribers. So they really had to change the way that they worked. So what they wanted to do is really focus on digital delivery and having a digital foundation, which really allows them to control their own destiny. It also provides them the ability to deliver that in a fast and agile manner. A lot of us have heard about agile methodology. Well, it gives them the ability to be quick and nimble, so to speak. Now, from a T-Mobile environment, from an SAP perspective, they are very very complex. They're highly customized. That includes, SAP management and SAP financial reporting. So maintenance for those components for T-Mobile was very expensive. So they've got, base in there, they've got the business suite, and they have a lot of systems that are joined in order to ensure that the customer experience is a good one. So one of the things that T-Mobile did cite is that the expertise of Rimini Street through their third-party support for SAP and Oracle database included extensive experience solving challenging problems that they had. And what it did is it also gave them the ability to reinvest those funds in their digital footprint. Been a customer myself for many years of T-Mobile, also an employee, and they're constantly, challenging the status quo within their environment.
Great, thank you, Jennifer. If you can, audience, if you are interested and if you can make it on Thursday, we have a webinar, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock Pacific, with Eric from T-Mobile and Ray Wong, an analyst, who are going to have a discussion, and Jennifer will be there as well. So you will hear more details on how they're doing it. We can send you the link as well, or you can go to riministreet.com and sign up. But very excited and looking forward to having that conversation with Eric on T-Mobile of more detail than, thank you, Jennifer, for sharing that high level, but looking forward to that conversation as well. And Ray is going to talk about some of the strategies that he is seeing as an industry analyst. So just a plug for the Thursday webinar if you have the time. Thank you, Jennifer, for that. Let's take a look at the next story here. Here we go. So green cargo, this is just another example of building on what T-Mobile, of course, here in North America, but green cargo is an EMEA example. They are a government-owned organization in Sweden, about a $4 billion company. They're a sustainable logistics partner for the government, and they are responsible for transporting something like 23 million tons of freight annually. 95% of their ton kilometerage is all clean, zero through electric cars, almost zero impact to the climate. Ingo tells a great story, gracious to share the story in a few different forums. They have approximately 400 of these freight cars that leave every 24 hours, and they're replacing something like 9,000 truckloads of traffic off the streets in Europe. So a very green company, and they are supporting the environmental goals of Sweden. The story is back in, if you all recall the big financial crash, 2008, 2009, that's when they had to take a hard look at their entire infrastructure, and they had to outsource it to an IT services company. Fast forward 10 years later, 2 years ago, just before the pandemic hit, Ingo and team knew that model was not sustainable, this outsourcing model. So they had to figure out what their next generation IT strategy needs to be. And they had two main systems, a mainframe system and an SAP system. So the first thing they had to decide was, what do we do with our SAP system already on ECC 6 enhancement pack 7? Do we need to make the move to the next generation platform S4HANA, or can we run and maximize the life and value of this so I can focus on what my company goals are? And that's what they chose to do. This was back in September of 2019. So before the pandemic hit, they became a Rimini Street client, and now they know, as Ingo says, they knew that they had a partner who can take care of their SAP system. They could keep it running and in full compliance, and that freed them up to do other things that the business wanted them to do. They started doing things that helped with customer relationships, modernizing their user interface so that they could provide more access on mobile devices. They wanted to advance their innovation strategy by implementing this agile, low-code type IT model, so they could spin up a lot of these different applications quickly that helped support their customers, their suppliers, etc. They also created an API management platform because they wanted their core SAP system now talking to so many of the other systems in a multi-cloud infrastructure. So many of these cool things that they ended up doing in part because of the freed up people, time, and resources by moving to a model like third-party support, and yet keeping a great SAP system in place. And they are now able to, now latest create a library of all these microservices for rapidly building applications that the business needs. It could be, automating the process to book freight, or automating the process to provide, better delivery and on-time delivery, those kind of things. So a very business-led roadmap versus an IT-led roadmap. Again, happy to share more details on this story, but there's a full client success story on the Rimini Street site. Just thought we'll pick that just to reinforce the point Jennifer made about T-Mobile. So great examples of how this goes back to the core of the conversation, how T-Mobile, Eric and Ingo from Green Cargo are doing both. They're optimizing their costs and advancing innovation. Not only advancing, accelerating innovation is the bottom line, okay? All right, in the last few minutes, last segment, Jennifer, if you want to take the third-party support, I'll give it to you to help the audience understand how the model actually works. But very quickly, I think we already touched upon this, but this is a Gartner report that talks about their view of third-party support and how it's going to be a billion-dollar marketplace come 2023. They talk about it as a proven option. And if you look at the points on the right-hand side, for those of you, for those who don't want to move to the cloud, this is, again, goes back to the survey, or you can continue to expand you can continue to maximize the life and value of what you have today. You gain flexibility, wait till a business case emerges for S/4HANA. You can still go there if that's the right thing for you and if there's a business case, but do it on your timeline, not 2027. And then, of course, they call it as a safe haven where you can evaluate your long-term plans. Very quickly on this model, this is probably one of the most powerful models or slides that can help you explain what third-party support is. Very quickly, if you're paying $1 million in support for SAP today, the reality is, according to the study of over 200 clients validated by Valuar, the reality is you're paying about $2 million. Everything beneath the waterline, so to speak, adds up. The $1 million is the check that you write every year, but everything that's beneath it, the ongoing enhancements, the cost of migration to a new platform, the cost of supporting your customizations, because that's not part of the SAP model, that is sizable. And then the cost of self-supporting, finding and hunting for resolutions. Your teams are burdened with that, and being able to, or doing all the regression testing of the batches of bundles and fixes. All of that adds up according to the study. And that is typically the rule of thumb is if you're paying $1 million, the reality is you're paying $2 million. Moving to a third-party support model, it's exactly half of that. $1 million, you pay $500,000, everything goes away. You gain the flexibility to upgrade or update at your choice. We provide support for customizations, and the tailored nature of batches and fixes makes the self-support go away. So that's about $1.5 million in this generic example that frees up to advance your digital and innovation. So with that, let's go to you, Jennifer. I'm mindful of time. I know we're racing through it, but I want to make sure that the audience understand not only the financial impact, but let's talk about the service impact, because this is important.
Right. So, what we've been talking about, or Hari's been talking about, is really around the level 4 third-party application support. So that's really the replacement of SAP. But at Rimini Street, we also have a unified support model where we have introduced application managed service, so level 2, 3. And so a lot of our existing clients are starting to review this with us because they like the idea of having a single source vendor to be able to support them. So we have an unlimited model with continuous improvement. So we want to look for root cause. We don't want to be fixing the same ticket over and over and over again, where some of the system integrators or AMS providers do today because their models are all ticket-based. Ours is unlimited. We also have industry-leading SLAs, but I think the bottom line of this one is we really want our customers to experience a unified support model with Rimini Street. So not arguing over who has the ticket. It comes in, we have thousands of engineers that look at these tickets and cases and essentially support them as we move forward. All right, do you want to go to the next one, Hari? So this is really just a bit of a side-by-side comparison. You will have a copy of this, but essentially, Hari mentioned it earlier, we support all your customizations. We don't differentiate between standard code and custom code. We also assign what we call a primary support engineer to each account, but behind that primary support engineer are hundreds and hundreds of engineers that would work on the cases that you would log with us. Again, we offer application managed services. You know, we do performance support, interoperability support. We know that the SAP systems are rarely an island, they're upstream and downstream. Now, you have been getting things from SAP. One thing you will not get from Rimini Street is future versions, but if we think about the roadmap of SAP, they're really driving everyone to S/4HANA. And so Enhancement Pack 8 was the last one that came out, which was all about 5+ years ago. So the support services are what we offer. We also have strategic services that we offer from a device and guidance standpoint around cloud, license advisory, security advisory, interoperability, as well as technical functional road mapping. So a really comprehensive support model with Rimini Street. And of course, a lot of people ask, well, what about my tax updates? Well, Rimini Street provides global tax, legal, and regulatory in order to ensure that you stay compliant. We utilize patent pending technology that brings in all the information from all the government sites in order for our research specialists to review those to determine which ones would be applicable for our clients. So again, we have a 3-tiered vetting model. We are also, as I mentioned, a push model. And just down below are some of the statistics around the sites that we look at, the localities that are covered, how many updates we've sent. And one thing that Rimini Street does is we only provide you the tax updates that you need. So when you apply a support pack, of course, you're getting everything. We're only going to give you the things that you need. And what that does is it cuts down on our clients' testing time, and they don't have to worry about the other areas of the ERP when they get our tax updates. All right, next. And what good presentation wouldn't be without a logo slide? So for SAP, we signed over 680 clients all around the world. You know, one of our clients has over 611,000 employees, you know, annual revenue, 1 trillion. And then we support more than 200 SAP applications, as well as the third parties that are sold through SAP, like OpenText and VizText, as a couple of examples, but just some of our logos of some of the great clients that we have around the globe.
Thank you, Jennifer. And just 30 seconds on Rimini Street as a company, in case you are not familiar. You know, a global company in since 2005, estimated over $5 billion in client savings, recognized as the leader in the third-party support market by analysts. Over 1,500 people, employees, and signed clients, over 4,000 signed clients, including 153 of the Fortune 500. The most important statistic, and the one that we're most proud of, is our amazing support engineers providing 4.9 out of 5. And this is thousands of surveys that we get from clients who graciously take the time to tell us how we did and where we can do better. But 4.9 out of 5 industry-leading satisfaction scores, as well as take a look at all the supported products within the Oracle, SAP, the applications and databases. And we also support, as I said, Salesforce, and our managed services include for Oracle and SAP as well, and other database projects. So that is, in a nutshell, who we are as a company. With that, let me hand it over back to you, Jason. And this goes back, this is one way, third-party support is one way where you can shift that equation so that you can do both. You can innovate and you can save money. You can optimize your costs and retain flexibility, take control of your roadmap for the future, your SAP strategy for the future, which all these 4,000 plus signed clients have done. And with that, let me hand it over to you, Jason. I know we have a few questions. Sorry, we're almost out of time, but we'll make sure that we get back to every person who has a question here after the session as well.
Definitely. Well, thank you very, very much. Before we tackle questions, just want to say, you know, we've been running a lot of these sessions over the past year, and that is by far one of the most informative we have had. People love those stories. So thank you so much for being so detailed with that. So thank you both. So a couple of questions coming in. Quick one, just actually relating to the areas that you were just covering off, Jennifer. For level 4 support, do you also include design reviews / code reviews, etc., for side custom build outs?
So typically that would be done more by a system integrator from a project perspective. We have been involved where clients have, quick questions. They have a Q&A type case they want to open with us to talk about the projects that they are going to go live with. So we have had those discussions, but a full-on review from a level 4 support perspective, no, typically the system integrator would be doing things like that.
Great, thank you very much. One of the early questions that came in, has locking down on the current version of SAP meant an end to developments for business areas?
So the short answer to that, Jason, is no. As you can see, we gave 2 client examples. We have many different clients around the globe that are innovating. One of the companies that we had was a mining company that, if the miners come out of the mine, there's revenue loss. So they essentially created an application, a Fiori application actually, that they could collect HR time from the miners. So a lot of our continuing to innovate because of the fact that that's what's going to move the needle for their business.
And Jason, that is one of the most common misconceptions or misperceptions when customers consider third-party support. They say, oh, if I move to a model like third-party support, am I frozen, right? And as Jennifer said, it couldn't be further from truth. There are customers who, or client after clients who have done, they continue to roll out globally. They continue to add new SAP products and licenses. They continue to make enhancement pack updates if that's the right thing they need to do. They make interoperability changes. So very active and dynamic environment. In fact, more so than probably what they're doing today. Like in the green cargo example, you're able to do a lot more innovation in a more faster, nimble, more agile manner because your people are not focused on keeping the systems running. They're focused on innovating, right? So that's one case for it.
That's it. Thank you both very much. And then the final question here, an interesting one. How do you support customizations and provide tax updates?
Excellent. So I think I described the tax updates. What we do is I log into our development system to provide them with system is within the client's each domain. And as from a customization perspective, when our clients have issues with their custom code, typically what they'll do is they'll open a case with us. And what we'll do is we'll work in order to debug. We leverage the tools that come and that are existing in SAP. So debugging those issues and coming to a resolution and providing you with a solution to the problem that you've logged with us.
Hari, anything to add?
No, I think Jennifer covered it. I think the fact is being able to work, with our clients hand in glove, being able to use all the current tools as Jennifer mentions, and and as part of the primary support engineer model that Jennifer alluded to, this person is assigned to you as a client, and that person becomes familiar with your environment. So there are added benefits of having somebody who is familiar with your environment. And anytime you have an issue, anytime you have any of these, if anything breaks, you can count on your primary support engineer, and you're not going up and down a call tree trying to explain to every new person what the issues are. So that's also one of the one of the value points that our clients see in the model. As one CIO says, I have my primary support engineer on my cell phone. If there's anything that breaks, we'll make sure we get it fixed right away. So that primary support engineer, along with the ability to fix all of those things, that all comes together in the model.
Well, I think to add to that before we close up is,
yep.
A lot of our clients also have teams that are all around where you open that, say for instance, your US customer has a support team, say for instance, in the Asia Pac region. The engineers in the Asia Pac region cases, you're not waiting for the support engineer, working with any of the hundreds of engineers around the globe.
Good point. it's the
Fantastic.
follow the sun model that's working.
Well, thank you both very, very much. That obviously concludes today's session. So I want to take this opportunity from myself on behalf of the whole SINC team to thank all the attendees for taking the time to come. And also thank you, Rimini Street, for partnering with us on this session today, and Harry and Jennifer for some really detailed insights. I think that was a perfect blend of use cases and overview of services that everybody's looking for. So well done on a fantastic session. To all those wondering, this session will be made available for on-demand viewing. So we will edit this recording and send out an on-demand version, essentially just removing all of my fluff at the beginning to make it a little bit more pleasurable to view. So please do keep an eye out for that, and you'll obviously be able to share that with your colleagues as well. In doing so, we'll also share a couple of links. Some of the information that was provided in the slides today are pertinent to some surveys and reports that have been conducted and put together, and we will share you some links to go and access those assets complimentary as well. So again, on behalf of myself and the SINC team, thank you everybody for joining.
Thank you,
very
Jason.
much, Harry, Jennifer, great session. Thank you, Rimini Street. Wherever you are in the country, continue to stay safe, and we look forward to seeing you at another SINC session.
Thank you, Jason and the SINC team, and thank you, audience, for taking the time to being with us. Looking forward to continuing the conversation. Thank you, everybody.
Cheers, everyone.
Bye.
See you.